Previously on Coalition of the Sane.
And the other interesting part, well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that Bill
No, it's
Barr
okay.
just came into office January, February of 2019, and he right away gets on that we were being looked at as invested because they were already word that we were in Ukraine, stirring up, trying to talk. So Bill Barr starts looking into us around that same time and starts getting detailed accounting of what's going on with me, Giuliani, Ukraine, and all of that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coalition of the Sane in part 2 of the Lev Parnas interview. I know we talked about the dangers of democracy in part 1, but wait until you hear the names involved. And also, what is it like to sneak something out of jail in your underwear? Stay tuned, and let's get to work. When you're talking about the names that are involved here, Lev, I have to say you weren't just barely part of this scheme. You were firmly entrenched in it at the highest levels.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I was a point person, and later on between all of them. I mean, what happened later is when the BLT team, and I call it the BLT team because of the we used to meet at the BLT restaurant in the Trump International Hotel in D.C. On the second floor, they had a private room set up strictly for the Trump family, and we were able to use it because Don Jr. told me it would be swept once a week for devices. So this is a room that we use. Like, I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but that's the conversation we had. So that I call it the BLT team, but it was comprised of me, John Solomon, Victoria Tunzing, Jody Genova, and Rudy Giuliani. But then we had the outlets like Devin Nunes and his team of Patel and Derek Harvey. Then you had Ron Johnson in the Senate. Then you had like Lindsey Graham. Then you had all of these other tentacles that were doing their own stuff, their own investigations, like the Bannons of the world, the Roger Stones, that then would leak that information or whatever they were getting to us, and then we would be the source of getting it out to the media or to Trump and everything else. And eventually, I became the point person to all of them because they all kind of, got put together. And anything that had to do with Ukraine, the Bidens, or anything to do, I became the point person to all of it. That's how I could sit here and tell you that there was no corruption done by Joe and Hunter Biden because everything went through my hands. And if there was even a slightest bit, I would be telling you because I'm not here to cover up for one or the other. I'm here to tell you the truth of what I seen, what I witnessed, and what I've been a part of.
So you were the sort of the point man and part of the coordination for the Corrupt Election Scheme Fusion Center. All the data
Absolutely.
came through you, right? And so as part of that Corrupt Election Scheme Fusion Center, you got to see so much. So now we're February of 2019. Was there an explosion on or about the spring of 2019 when the Hunter Biden laptop starts to spring up? Because I know a lot of those dates, as you know, I know this very well,
Yes.
but I want to hear from you on your side.
Yes.
So you're talking, in April of 2019, did you automatically know that there was something out in the wild, or did you have a notion that there was already Hunter Biden data or maybe something out there that people weren't aware of?
We knew as early as middle to end of February 2019 is when the first time I heard about the Hunter Biden laptop from Yuri Lutsenko. He told me that there is a hard drive out there with compromising information on Hunter Biden, and he promised to get it to us.
So wait a second. That's a couple.
February. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that a couple months before April 12th, 2019?
Yeah, but there's a couple of versions. I'd like to discuss them with you off the record first, and then maybe we could come back because I think
of course we will.
But I do want to share some stuff. You just brought up some interesting part that I would love to share. With you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty good with timelines, and so the thing is, what people don't realize, April 2019, Hunter Biden actually drops laptops, and by the way, it's 3 laptops that he drops off if you go by John Paul McIsaac's book. So a lot of this stuff is public. We're discussing, and I think that's why I'm so surprised, Lev, when you look at what you're doing now, learning about data in February of 2019. We know the laptop issue in April of 2019. You're already dealing with some pretty suspect characters. And by the way, and we're going to go into it, Durkash hasn't even come into the picture yet, right? You're talking, in spring of 2019.
He starts coming into the picture sometime around like March through a guy named Kulik. So when Kulik,
Oh,
I get
Kulik.
introduced, Kulik, and that was Dirkach's right hand guy, and that's when they tried to push Dirkach on us. But Dirkach was so, I mean, he was so it wasn't like it was that difficult. I mean, you could Google him and see who Dirkach was. You didn't have to be like a heavy like investigator to understand that he was, an ex-KGB. His father was head of the KGB. That the guy is pro-Russian, and like, I mean, just take a look at anything he says. So it wasn't that difficult to understand. This is not somebody that we should even be around. So
did you meet Dirkach?
I never met him personally. I was supposed to meet him a couple of times through different people, but I kept canceling it because I understood who he was, and then I started cutting off the people that was trying to bring him to me, like Kulik and Andrei Artemenko. Those are the two people that were trying to push Dirkach on us.
And what was Dirkach's first name, Lev?
Andre also.
Yeah. And and I'm asking this for a reason. And so Andre Dirkach, I'm just hoping that people realize when Lev is talking about this, he has intimate knowledge. And I think people should use their Google machine to look up Andre Dirkach and why this is so important, right? I think people need to look up some of these names. And when Lev is talking and you're looking at the timeline of this, actually look into what he is saying, because it is absolutely gobsmacking what you're saying right now. And of course, meeting you the first time, I was also equally gobsmacked. And I think that's why your book is so important. And I think that's why people should go out and get shadow diplomacy. So now we're into spring of 2019. And I know we're getting close as you're going into the spring and the summer of 2019. I know that things start to escalate a bit, correct?
Yes.
Was there ever a time during that time that you're like, maybe this is hogwash, that I might be into something I don't want to be in? At that point in the middle of 2019, were you there yet? Or were you still really involved or directed in getting the proof against the Bidens?
No, I was hardcore in. Even when we would hit dead ends and brick walls, I would look at it that was the dead end, but the information was still out there. We just have to go find a different path and find it. And I was hardcore Trumper, hardcore in. I mean, even till the day of my arrest, even the day of my arrest, I mean, I stood there and I was laughing at the FBI agent saying, "Do you guys have any idea what you're doing? Like, the cavalry is going to be here soon, and and they were looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, because it was being in a cult, Denver, and you understand, because me and you've spoken about a lot, and a lot of people don't understand that it's like being on drugs. It's like being out of your mind experience. You're not the same. No, you're not the person that you thought you were. You're not the person you change, because your brain does not react the same way to this information the same way, because by being in a cult, you become so narrow-minded to certain subjects that there's no other way to validate or any information, that you believe so hardcore in it that even if you're looking at something that's like white and you think it's black, your mind will make you believe it's black. That's how powerful our minds are. Like, you know what I mean? So being in a cult and being fed the same information day in and day out by everything around you and not having any source of validation, eventually the mind closes in and you believe what you believe. So yeah, no, I was hardcore Trumper. And that's why I say in my book, I say every day, is the best thing that could have happened to me. Remember, Denver, I told you, as bad as it was, is by getting arrested. Because if I didn't get arrested, as crazy as it sounds, I would have probably been the January 6th. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't have, because I was so hard. Once it's like every day you get more and more. It's like you need the drug more and more. It's like a fix you need. And but when I got arrested and I was able to get that time to be able to reflect and get an opportunity to look at other sources of information and see how the other side of the world and get out of that bubble, it all started coming in really like, floodgates. So
what date were you arrested, Lev? What was that date that you were arrested?
October 9, 2019.
October 9, 2019.
Yeah, and just think about it. At the day of my arrest, the Attorney General Bill Barr went and visited the Southern District of New York to oversee my arrest. The Attorney General of New York, of the United States of America, and then right after that, went and had dinner with Rupert Murdoch from Fox. And why people might think, well, why Fox? Why Rupert Murdoch? Because you have to understand that part of my trip the day of my arrest was that Fox and Hannity were having an exclusive interview with Rudy Giuliani, Victor Shokin, and we were supposedly going to expose the laptop, the hard drive. So Fox and everybody was complicit in everything that was going on, and the cover-up. I think the cover-up is a lot worse than what the crime was, and that's why I think what Bill Barr did, and by even putting in, Special Prosecutor Scott Brady, by allowing all of this. Just think about Bill Barr. Yeah, Donald Trump is as bad as they come. That's a given. Rudy Giuliani, absolutely, but Bill Barr allowed them to continue doing what they did, because if he didn't arrest me, if he didn't shut me up, if he didn't suppress my evidence, if he would have taken everything in and allowed me to testify and speak and everything else, we wouldn't have January 6th. We wouldn't have Donald Trump right now, because he would have got impeached in the first impeachment, and it would have been the end of Donald Trump, and we would have been going on building on the country. But Bill Barr covered that up and allowed that to happen. And to make matters worse, not only did he allow Trump to go on, but he allowed Russian disinformation to be used to impeach a U.S. sitting president currently, to have that sham impeachment. So that's what we need to look into, because I think that's the worst crime of it all, Bill Barr.
I don't know if I can really follow up on that and summarize that any better. And so would you say then, after all you just said, you said October 9th of 2019, you still, though, were in the Trump camp regardless of your arrest and everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought the cavalry was coming for you, that there was no way they were going to let you hang based on everything that you had done in your knowledge. However, it didn't really work out like that, did it, Lev?
No. A series of events happened that made me snap out of it. So first of all, I was not, because of the way I was arrested, for the first week, I was not able to even get in contact with my family. I was held in isolation and 24-hour lockdown, all kinds of stuff like that. Eventually, like 4 or 5 days into it, I don't know the exact days because I lost track of time while I was in the jail cell. One of the guards was making fun of me and saying to one passing by, saying something to the effect that Trump doesn't even know who you are, because I think Trump came out and made that statement that he doesn't know. I don't know who he is. I don't know who that gentleman is. Then, I was thinking about that, laying there. I have nothing else to do 24 hours a day, and thinking about that one statement, like why, analyzing it back forwards and backwards, why Trump would not say who I am. Yeah. Then finally I got a phone call. I was able to make a phone call, and it was to my wife. And when I called my wife, I right away started asking her, like, where's Rudy? Where's Victoria? Did anybody call? Like, what's happening? When am I getting out of here? And I could tell in her voice that she was scared to tell me, because what was happening was Rudy and Victoria and everybody else was telling my wife that to be very careful to what I'm talking about, because I'm being taped in prison, in the jail cell, and be careful what she speaks to me about, because they're hearing that I'm losing my mind in there, because they held me in solitary confinement, and I might be saying things that don't make sense and rambling. So they start preparing my wife to think that I'm going crazy, that I might be saying some crazy stuff to what's it called. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where's Rudy? Why isn't he coming? And then she says to me, Rudy said he can't meet with me without his attorney being present. I said, what? Then right after that, I get a visit from my lawyers, John Dowd and Downing. So like I said, like, certain things happen, like you couldn't make it's like, even if you watched a movie, you wouldn't believe it, that it was a made up. You'd think it had to be made up, because it can't happen like this, not in America. So they come into my cell. Not to my cell. I get brought up my cell. I'm shackled from head to toe, like I'm, Pablo Escobar. And they bring me into the visiting room, and we're in there, and he's sitting, John Dowd is sitting behind this little desk, and Kevin Downing standing next to him. And I looked at him and I said, what's going on? Why is Trump? Because I couldn't wait to see them and say, why is nobody here? And why is Trump saying he doesn't know me? And at that moment, John Dowd slams his fist on the table and looks at me and says, shut the hell up. Who do you think you are? He goes, he's the president of the United States. You're just going to sit back and listen and fall into line and do what you're told to do and just shut the hell up. And I looked at him, and after being a week in prison and going through all the thing, I lost to Denver, and I lunged at him. And as I lunged at him, they hit the panic button, and I gets taken out there by the police, by the guards. And as I'm being taken out by the guards, I'm screaming, you motherfuckers, you're fired. I don't want to see you. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. So now they throw me into the cell. Now I'm in the cell. I got no lawyers. Can't get a phone, don't know how to get in touch with my wife again, and thinking to myself, I don't even know what I'm in here for because of the way I'm being arrested. Like, this is not like, I'm being treated like Pablo Escobar. I'm not being treated like a guy that just got arrested for, I mean, like, what was the crime? I'm thinking, what is my crime? Nobody's telling me yet. I haven't had my arraignment yet, remember, So
Right.
anyway, so now that night, two things happened. So one of the things is, because of my case that was in New York, it was scheduled in Southern District of New York. They had to transfer me from Virginia to New York. So Kevin Dowd and Downing were not registered as lawyers in New York. They're now registered at the bar. So they had to go out and hire me a New York lawyer to represent me at the arraignment. And one of the lawyers that they hired for me was Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is who is representing Trump right now. And
wow.
It was Todd.
That's why this story is so important, by the way. And I want to tell you, this is why this story is so important. Please continue, Lev. Please continue, because now I'm getting, please continue.
So they hire for me Todd Blanche and Ed McMahon. So Todd Blanche decides to represent Igor, and Ed McMahon represent me. But this is stuff I have no idea. I'm telling you now. At the time, I'm in jail. I have no lawyers and nothing. All of a sudden that night, I don't know if it's 2, 3, 4 in the morning. All of a sudden, I get a postcard a piece of paper slipped under my door, in my jail cell. You gotta understand, Denver. I'm in a lockdown. I don't even have a piece of paper. They didn't even give me a bar of soap. I had powdered soap, not toothpaste, powdered toothpaste. Nothing. Like that. I was on such a strict supervision. They strip searched me in and out every time I left the cell. And I was this is how they were treating me. And all of a sudden, I get a note passed underneath my cell. So I thought I was hallucinating. But finally, when I got enough nerve to pick it up, I take a look, and it's a postcard from the White House, from Rudy Giuliani, basically telling me, apologizing that what happened, that my arrest indulged, and that not to worry, that I have good lawyers. Paul Manafort only got 7.5 to 9 years.
That's the
Denver,
note you got.
I was in such shock, and I put it in the book. I snuck it out. I was in, and God, God saved me. And if it wasn't for God, things like this couldn't happen. Because just think about the chain of events that happened afterwards. Because now I'm in my cell with this postcard, and I know the next morning they're gonna come and search my cell. That's the daily routine. They would come in, search my cell, look at me, even though I'm sitting with nothing in there. Next morning, I'm all of a sudden again knocking my door earlier, like 8, 9 in the morning. It was a guard that wasn't on the regular shift, and tells me, Parnas, your lawyer's here. Now I'm in shock. I'm thinking, what lawyer? I just got rid of these guys. I'm thinking they came back. At the same time, I'm thinking I can't leave the postcard here. They're gonna obviously take it. So I put it in my underwear, and they don't strip search me that day. And they go to the lawyer's room. And when I come in there, it's Ed McMahon, not these guys. And Ed McMahon had no idea I fired him, and he didn't have any loyalty to them. He goes to me, Lev, my only job here is, I'm a Republican, conservative lawyer, but I'm not a Donald Trump lawyer. He goes to me, so I don't care what's going on between you guys. He goes, my job is to be your lawyer and to get you out on bail. He goes, and that's what I'm here to do. And I looked at him like he was my godsend. I turned around and said, hey, Ed, I'm going to ask you something very serious. Since you're my lawyer, this is what I need you to do. And I start going in my underwear, and he gets all very scared. He looks at me, he's like, whoa, what are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you reaching your underwear for? Yeah, exactly.
And I whip out the postcard, and he looks at that, and I've never seen, his eyes were like wide. He goes, what is that? I go, take a look, and you tell me what is that. How did I get that in my cell? He goes, how am I standing here with a postcard post-dated from the White House and Rudy Giuliani in my cell when I don't even have a prison number? I can't get mail. How did I get this in my cell? He's looking at me. He's like, I don't know, but I can't touch it. It's contraband. I said, contraband? This is fucking evidence. I said, what do you mean contraband? I said, if you could give me one way of how I am standing here in shackled all over the place with this postcard from the White House, from Rudy Giuliani, in the middle of Alexandria, Virginia, in a cell, 24-hour lockdown, I said, I'll let you tear it up. And he looked at me. He didn't know what to say, and he put it in his suitcase and took it out. And that's how I was able to save that postcard.
That's how you're able to save it. And by the way, you should frame that postcard. If you could get me to frame, I would like to frame that for my background when I do this show from now on. And the other thing too is truth is stranger than fiction. And I've told so many conspiracy theorists and stuff that the actual real deal behind the scenes will shock you more, because there's a difference between conspiracy and conspiracy theories. Those are two different things.
Two different things.
You were part of a conspiracy to dig up dirt on the Bidens, whether it was false or not. And then you were left out to dry based on the fact that you got arrested during this pursuit to build this ability to aggregate data to go after Biden, almost like a fusion center, like a corrupt election scheme fusion center. And you were left out to dry. And then you get a postcard just saying you might get 7 to 9 years. And then you have to hide that postcard in your nether regions to sneak it out like you were Pablo Escobar or Jeffrey Dahmer, right? And then right, and then you have to convince a lawyer to take it, who's a conservative lawyer, and you still aren't quite sure what the hell you're doing in prison.
Absolutely.
And you have a president who says he doesn't know you, because I want to tell you this. It seems like he's such a coward that he uses the Shaggy defense. Do you remember the Shaggy song from what 2001? It wasn't me. I mean,
yeah, it wasn't me.
It wasn't me. And Republican supporters seem to support this, right? The Shaggy defense from this guy who has absolutely no moral fiber at all. And my guess is, once you're using powdered soap and powdered toothpaste, were you having a change of heart about your loyalty to Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and the other individuals that were pursuing Hunter and Joe Biden at that point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at that point, because you have to understand, it wasn't even just about, I mean, Rudy Giuliani was godfather to my 4-year-old son. I mean, I was like, you got in Denver, you got to understand, I spent a little over a year, every day, maybe 5 days out of the week with Rudy Giuliani, like traveling the world, spending, in the same hotels, dinner, morning, lunch. I mean, going to baseball games, going to events. I mean, we were very, very close. So, and also don't forget, Rudy, remember I gave him the $20? Rudy always told me he's my lawyer. So not to have Rudy show up to even visit me while I'm sitting, while he's 20 minutes away at the hotel, to drive up to Alexandria, none of them to come visit me and even just say, they, instead of that, they use the stay away, like, and shut him up and close him up, and we'll deal with them later approach. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see how my wife was going through, because remember, I pushed all of this onto my family. I forced my wife to believe that Rudy Giuliani was our family. I forced my son. The day of my arrest, Rudy Giuliani literally kidnapped my son. Figuratively speaking, but had him stay in his hotel room for 2 days, scaring him, telling him that the reason he hasn't there is because the FBI might come arrest him because he was with me in the hotel and Rudy Giuliani. Stuff like that instead, and nobody showed up. Not to Raymond, not one tweet, not one interview, not one, And I started realizing, I said, you know what? I've seen this play out with other people. I've seen what he did with Michael Cohen. And even though I was on the other side at that time, but when you get out of the cult, you're starting to see things on both sides and they start making sense. And I saw the wavelength of when Donald Trump starts saying he doesn't know somebody and starts distancing himself from somebody. The next wave is then the attack from the media and everything on that somebody. And that's what happened to me. As soon as after my arraignment, the media went ballistic on me, trying to frame me to be a Russian spy, to be a gangster, to be a mobster, you name it. And it was all done for the simple purpose, Denver, is to shut me up and make me not be credible witness. So
and the press was too lazy to follow up in a real way.
Yeah, well, that's the crazy part. They ran with stories that weren't even validated. I was so surprised. How they ran with stories, and the crazy part about it is the story, the actual thing that I went to prison for, a campaign finance violation. I would have never. You don't get arrested for that. You get a call, you come in, you talk about. The reason you even know my name at that time is because they needed to throw Russia in there. They needed to throw espionage and what I was arrested for, what I was detained for, what I was given bail for, millions of dollars, what I was given strict 24-hour lockdown confinement, was because it was an espionage charge that they dropped a year later.
Listen, I say sometimes things that are sort of common sense hammer stuff. So you're telling me you got espionage charges with meeting with the same people that Rudy Giuliani met with?
Yeah, absolutely. On
That's
behalf of
interesting.
Donald Trump. On behalf of
Yeah,
Donald
that's
Trump.
interesting. And on behalf of Donald Trump, and by the way, you were getting a paycheck too, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. From Brian Bauer,
Oh,
because I was introducing them, and they were
that's
lobbying, and
interesting.
I mean, they were all in on it.
Of
Everybody's
course,
getting paid.
everybody's getting paid. And when you do a follow the money on this and look at the networking of this, it's pretty interesting that you get the espionage charge, but everyone around you didn't. Is that
No,
how I'm reading this, Love?
yeah, nobody
Okay,
even got
so
charged. Nobody even got charged. And the crazy part, Denver, is when the Times finally got the SDNY to release my search warrants. Now the public sees the craziness to the extent the Southern District and the DOJ went to try to frame me to be a spy and discredit all the actual evidence that was pointing to what we were doing in Ukraine on behalf of Trump and Giuliani.
well, it's sort of their MO, isn't it?
It's crazy.
First they leave you out to dry, then their oppo specialists or opposition research specialists
Yep.
make sure that they determine which reporters should get the information because those reporters want to keep access to the Trump White House and to their
Yep.
sources.
And
So
don't
in order to
forget,
keep their
yeah, Bill
go ahead.
Barr was
Go
head
ahead,
of
Love.
the Bill Barr was in charge of the DOJ at the time. So
It's again, it's very interesting. And a lot of times, as people are watching this, I'm going to let them actually use their common sense as we go through this, Lev, right? And I hope they do, if they have common sense. Here's the other thing that I want to, state on this is that espionage charge was dropped. And
Yep.
when you talk about those things, that gets to me. But the fact is, I want everybody to know when you were arrested on October 9th, best and worst day of your life, but you actually had to sneak postcards out in your underwear based on what happened to you.
Oh,
You were
absolutely, yeah.
demonized by the press. You were left out to dry by Trump and his associates. You were absolutely and utterly alone. And it was because you had bought into this vision from Trump, as you said, the cult of Trump had gone completely down the rabbit hole. Then you find yourself on the other end in a way that many, many people can never say that they did. For me, for a lot of other people, I came out pretty early against Trump. I won't lie, right? And a couple other people did. But you, maybe out of everyone, has suffered the most based on your loyalty to Trump and what you did. And the things that you were doing and the people you were with were not good characters. These were sordid, awful individuals, some sanctioned by the United States government as being foreign assets. And I guess now, as we're going into 2020, was there a day when you said, I cannot believe I fell for this?
I mean, there was the day actually where I made my decision and never looked back was it was after my arraignment. We were in my lawyer's office. I think the next day it was me, my wife, and my lawyer, and I was still Giuliani was still reaching out. I still had contact with Igor. Giuliani was still pushing that we're going to get pardoned and everything's going to be great. And my lawyer, and at that time I still had McMahon, and I had now hired Joe Bondi. And Joe Bondi was my dear friend of 20 years. And when I hired him, because he was the only one I could trust, even though Ed was my lawyer, I think I couldn't trust anybody with the situation. And we met at his office, and he sat me down, and he had a real heart-to-heart with me and my wife. And he said to me, he said, look, the journey that you might have ahead of you might not be an easy one, and it's probably going to be extremely difficult because of the people involved. He goes, but the only way I could be on this journey with you is if you do tell the truth and come out with it all, no holding back, not because it's the information that you have is important for not just yourself but the country. He goes, and as the saying goes, as crazy as it sounds, he goes, the truth will set you free. He goes to me, and you need to be all in, and I'm all in with you. He goes, if you tell me that you will, I looked at my wife, I looked at him, and I said to him, I said, whatever it takes, I'm in. As all in as I was on Donald Trump, I'm all in on getting the truth out and exposing exactly what happened at any cost, whatever the cost is to me. And that was, I think, the day that after that I never looked back. And we've been fighting every day to get the truth out.
I appreciate your fight. And, it's sometimes I think when people hear this for the first time, which I know a lot of this, but it's still speechless. Sometimes I'm even left speechless in what you went through and what you came out on the other side, Lev. And again, I want to commend you. And I don't even have the words to actually appropriately,
Thank you, Denver.
define and categorize what you went through for people. And I think they need to really think about how they would act if they were in jail and you didn't even know what the charge was. And then this awful dire charge is dropped a year later. And here you are trying to get the truth out. And a lot of people don't want to hear it because of maybe biases or things of that nature. But it seems to me that you've come out on the other side with your integrity intact, but also with a realization that you weren't a cult, but you are part of the coalition of the sane now, right? You're here with us, and
absolutely,
and you're literally kicking ass. I really don't have the words to express, what you went through. Just to know that I like that you're out there.
Thank you, brother. I love you too. And the best thing about it all, and as corny it might sound, is that I could look my kids in the eyes and feel good about that. They could be proud of me, because before I wanted them. When I see the crazy part is when I was with Trump, I forced them to be proud of me, because they didn't appreciate my wife, my kids, my actions, the way I spoke, the way I was forcing opinions on them. But in my little world at that time, I thought that they were proud of me. But now I actually know they're proud of me. And now I know actually could feel it, see it. And that's the best gratification, satisfaction I could have, that I'm able to look my kids, my wife in the face, and they're proud of what I'm doing.
Well, you are a 1,000,000-pound shit hammer of facts, my friend. And, I really do enjoy that.
We're going to keep bringing it. We're going to
keep bringing it. And I think, again, I hope people do grab your book. I'm the one shamelessly plugging it. You haven't even said anything, right? I think Shadow Diplomacy, everybody needs to buy. I also do want a copy, if you're okay, of that postcard. Now, I will tell you, I don't want the original. I don't want the original postcard, though, Lev, because it was in your drawers. Is in your underwear, and if I could, if I could get a copy of that, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Because
actually, I think the original things is I think it's in the Smithsonian. I got Joe actually, because out of the impeachment, the Smithsonian is asked to take certain articles from the impeachment into the. So I think that it's in the original.
It's in the
there.
I got to tell you.
I'll find out. Sure.
Or the archives or something like that. But no, again, Lev. Do you have any last words to say about people watching this, about your experience and where we should be in 2024?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank everybody out there for the support, and for everybody out there that wants to know the truth and listening to it. And it's the most important thing is that I'm going to say to everybody out there is these elections are not about policies. These elections are not about Democrat or Republican. These elections are about the future of your kids, your grandkids, and the future of our nation. It's about saving our democracy from a dictator and a tyrant that is looking to lead us down a very, very, very dangerous and sick rabbit hole. And what I tell everybody is don't think, just listen to what he tells you, because he's out there now telling you exactly what he's going to do. He's telling you how he's going to do it and what he's going to do. And it's dangerous. And I ask everyone, and the reason I wrote the book, Denver, is because, I never thought that I would get the day to testify, because of the pressure that the people like Barr and Trump and everybody were trying to suppress the information from coming out. And I really, even by testifying, you saw they didn't ask me one question and try to suppress the information coming out. And it's very difficult to do one podcast or one interview and get the whole story out. So that's why I wrote the book, for the viewers to understand, for people that read the book, to see what I would have testified had they had the guts and the balls to ask me one single question. And they would hear the full truth and the testimony when I was sitting there under oath, willing to testify in front of them. And it's all in the book, and a lot more, because Venezuela, Turkey, I've witnessed so much stuff, and there's so much in there that we just talk about Ukraine because Ukraine is a very hot topic because of what's going on. But I witnessed a lot of stuff in the 4 years I was around Donald Trump and Trump world. Mega 101.
Well, I tell you what, facts need to beat fantasy. And Lev, I am honored that you would come on Coalition the Sane. Thank you. And I know we're going to talk more. And again, thank you for being here, and be safe. I'm going to come see you soon.
Thank you, brother.